A Wisconsin bagpiper is able to continue his passion thanks to a double lung transplant at UW Health. For more than 2 years, David Furumoto was unable to muster the strength to inflate a balloon, let alone his beloved bagpipes. After investigating his symptoms, he was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. For Furumoto, that meant depending on a portable oxygen machine anytime he went to work as a professor in the theater and drama department at UW-Madison. He was placed on the active transplant wait list in November of 2021, and he received his transplant shortly after.
The fact that I'm contemplating getting back on stage again even is pretty wonderful. You know, I think there's a big difference.
Furumoto says he wrote a thank you note to his donor's family to express his gratitude. It's allowed him to travel as well as resume his many passions, which includes playing the bagpipes and working as a producer of Asian theater.